Our movie this week is Disney Pixar's Elemental. This is brought to you by everybody who said this movie was good. That's why we're watching this. It was released on Juneteenth, June 16th, 2023, directed by Peter Song, who hasn't directed a lot of movies, but he is really involved with a lot of other notable Pixar movies. So so he's like been behind the scenes on Pixar stuff. So he's not new to Pixar. One thing he did direct was Good Dinosaur. Do you remember that movie?
I did not watch The Good Dinosaur, but kind of just like this movie, it was reviewed very low. Well, not reviewed low, but it had a low opening.
It wasn't like a Toy Story.
Yeah, it was one of those, this is an animated movie that's an original idea, so people didn't really run out to go see it because it wasn't a sequel of any kind.
Okay. Well, me and Jer have not talked about our thoughts about the movie, so I didn't want to say what I thought about the movie just now. Voice cast is Leah Lewis, Mamadou Achi, who was from Jurassic World Dominion, Ronnie Del Carmen, and Sheila Ami or Omi? Omi. One of the two. That was like the main voice cast of this movie. Runtime of 109 minutes. Budget
perfect runtime.
Perfect. You're under that 2-hour mark. Budget was $200 million. Current box office number is $469 million. And this is notable because the opening weekend for Elemental was considered to be awful.
Yeah, it ranked down there with The Good Dinosaur.
Wow.
Opening weekend. I think Good Dinosaur was down there as like Pixar's lowest debuting animated movie of all time. Elemental kind of debuted closer to that. So because it debuted close to that, everybody quickly called it a flop.
Which is like my least favorite word right now, by the way. They were saying it was bad. The domestic opening was $29.6 million. People said Pixar was over. They're finished. Put a fork in it. They're done.
And at the same time, Pixar was also complaining that ever since Disney acquired them, they felt like Disney, the company, was pushing anything that wasn't a Disney original animated feature. They were pushing it to streaming and only seeing like Disney movies to movie theaters.
Because the last couple of Pixar movies, I believe, went straight to streaming due to the pandemic.
Right.
So I think Soul, Turning Red. I don't know if I'm missing some Pixar movies.
Those went to streaming.
But those were
both reviewed very high.
I didn't see Turning Red, but Soul was good.
Yeah.
Soul was good. So as of this weekend, Elemental has passed both Toy Story and Cars worldwide. It's basically this summer's box office darling, as you want to say. Comeback story, if you will.
And this is Labor Day weekend, and I saw that it's expected to cross the $500 million mark after this weekend. And
I hope it does, because people was trying to count this movie out.
Elemental, it's crazy because Elemental was called such a flop, and it's beating blockbuster films. It's beating superhero block. You have movies that have an international gross of under $100 million, and they are superhero movies from an IP that has existed longer than I've been alive.
Would you be talking about The Flash by any chance?
That Blue Beetle.
Both of those.
We're talking about Shazam.
Probably.
We're talking about big budget box office films with actual actors using actual sets, promotion, crazy amounts of advertising. I mean, I'm tired of seeing some of these ads before my movie screenings.
Type of marketing.
And Elemental was a slow burn, which is funny because, it's about elements. It was a slow burn, and it just drove past. It's like the tortoise and hare thing.
It has legs.
Yeah.
It's got legs. And it's currently only available on digital. They have not announced when it's going to Disney Plus.
Yeah, so you can't stream it yet. If you want to watch it, you have to pay for it.
You have to pay for it. So it's blowing up internationally. It's been called a cultural success story. So it's basically why it's doing good at the box office. One, because it's a good movie. Two, because there's a cultural kind of aspect to the movie that you can even though they're playing elements, there's still a kind of cultural kind of plot line to the movie. Cinema score currently is A. So it's got an A. The highest you can get is a A+. Right. The Rotten Tomato critic score is 74%. It's certified fresh there. And the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is a 93%.
Yeah. So I think the movie's success can be attributed to the fact that, one, it's a good movie.
It is a good movie.
Two, it has themes.
It's got themes.
And
good themes.
The word of mouth really carried it. I think it was a slow burn because not a lot of people went to see it in bulk, but every weekend a new group of people went to go see it because they heard that it was
from the previous group of people.
Correct. Yeah. So it just kind of made money at a small but steady pace for a very long period of time, and now it's like dominating.
It's about to hit 3 months of being in the box office.
Yeah.
So, and typically at this point, I'm trying to think. I guess this is about the appropriate time of where they would put it on digital and then put it on streaming.
Blue Beetle came out 3 to 4 weeks ago, and has it been that
3
long?
weeks.
3
August
weeks.
18th.
And it's
so maybe
it's closing out its box office run at about 96 million worldwide.
And the budget was how much?
So
120.
Yeah.
120.
So
things are happening over there in DC land, but back to Disney. So as always, we'll do a summary or we'll do like our recap and thoughts that are spoiler free. So if you don't want us to spoil the movie, you can listen to us for a little bit and then we'll shout out and call out when we're going to split to spoilers so you can cut us off and make sure you come back later. So plot of Elemental was basically two elements that are polar opposite. I feel like there's going to be a lot of like
there's going to be a lot of
temperature elements that I'm like not doing on purpose. Two elements that are polar opposites of each other by happenstance, fate, as you would say, cross each other's paths. And then they have this whole dynamic of falling in love, but we can't be together. But shouldn't we be together? And family obligations and all that jazz.
Yeah, and they're like so it's the four main elements. It's fire, water, earth, and air. They live in this city. Elemental City, which is supposed to be this melting pot of all the elements coming together and living in harmony. So I thought that was interesting. Going into it, I had the idea that it was going to be kind of like Zootopia.
I did think it was going to be.
And it was kind of like Zootopia, but kind of like smaller scale. I feel like Zootopia, the world was kind of like Zootopia with animals, but it just wasn't as big.
Right.
It didn't have as many characters, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, well, I think Zootopia is like all the different types of animals where we're only talking about 4 different elements.
Right.
So there was that.
So it's kind of structured in that way.
Right.
Who are the main characters? We have Wade, who plays the water element, the main water element.
He's also, main guy.
And we have Ember, who plays the main fire element.
Correct.
And we have Wade's family and Ember's family.
We have both families on both sides, although we see more of Ember's family throughout the whole movie. Like Wade's family is in a touch, but we mostly focus more on Ember and her family.
Right. And then we have just like some side characters, which are Ember and her family own like I don't want to call it a corner store, but
like a convenience store.
Like a little market, like a convenience store. And so we get like side characters who pop in and out throughout the movie who come to the convenience store, and then Wade's co-workers.
Yep, Wade has like a regular job. So Amber and her family work the store. Wade has a regular job. So his boss, he has a earth co-worker and a wind. His boss is wind. His
wind or air.
Is it wind?
They don't really. She looks like a cloud. So I guess she's supposed to be like wind.
Right. And there was like a sports team called the Wind something, right?
Yeah. And it was like the Windbreakers.
Earth looks like trees in this. So I was like...
Yeah, all the earth elements were like...
All the earth
trees.
Elements.
There was one guy that looked like a rock and he had like crystals, but you only saw him like once.
Okay, I might... because
most of the earth element people were like trees or shrubs or bushes. They look
like bushes. They look like shrubbery.
Yeah.
I guess one little critique, non-spoiler critique, is that they could have did a better job with earth, because I kept thinking of earth as trees and not earth.
Right.
And they're also not a huge factor in this movie either.
The earth elements?
Not really. I mean,
the only characters that are factors we see are just
mainly
fire and water, which we'll get into when we get into like the spoiler part of the plot.
All the voice acting was good though.
Voice acting was good. I did not expect the voice cast to be who they were, especially Mamadou. I did not know that he did voice work.
Nope, he sounds nothing like he did in Jurassic Park. You even played a trailer.
No, yeah, because he leaned into this was comedy voice work, which I did not expect to see from him because he played like such a serious character in Jurassic World.
Right, and you played a trailer of a horror movie he's in with Felicia Rashad, and I was listening to the voice like he sounds nothing like he sounds in this movie, which makes you a good voice actor.
Yeah, it does.
All the characters were cute. There was no character. There was one particular character who did a thing, and I was like, is that how that's supposed to be? But all the characters were cute. They didn't have any, I guess there was no fluff, really. I mean, they kept it tight as far as the cast, as far as the plot. They definitely remembered this was a kid's movie, unlike Spider-Man or Little Mermaid, where it went over for 2 hours. And you're like, do you realize kids are watching?
That's true.
Because those movies were, for kids, I feel like they were a little long. But this is very... Get your kid in. Right. Get your kid in. It's very colorful. There's a lot of quote unquote action. So there's like some chase scenes and running around and all that. It's not too, I don't think it's not too confusing for a kid to follow. The plot was really
it's very simple.
But I actually thought if you took this movie and made it non-animated and put humans in it.
Yeah, I was very thrown off by some of the dialogue and some of the themes that were in the movie that was like, ooh, this is heavy for a child's movie.
Like it's not crude. Like, so it's not one of those kid movies where they add like those crude adult jokes that only adults would get. There were a couple of lines where you're like, oh, that's kind of for the parents. But they did a good job of making a kid and parent movie or kid/adult movie, because some of the themes, some of the lines that are said by some of the characters. And I personally feel like if you took this movie and made it an adult rom-com, it would work. Like you could literally, I mean, of course there wouldn't be fire elements because that's not realistic. But if you just made them human characters with a similar story, similar background, similar plot, this could be an adult rom-com.
So characters that you liked and didn't like. Were there any characters that you didn't like? Because I don't think there were any characters that I didn't like.
Not really didn't like. The little Earth kid was a little
who was in love with Ember.
Yeah, little annoying.
He was annoying, but I only remember seeing him in like 2 scenes.
He is, and that's bad that I said that because he's literally only in 2 scenes. Yeah. But I'll get to it when we talk about the end. The credit scene, I like. The 2 scenes
he was in. His name was Clyde. Yes. And the 2 scenes he was in, you probably found annoying because he only showed up to distract her when she should have been doing something else.
Yes, and she immediately gets rid of him. Like she immediately dismisses him, and I'm like, "What is he here for?"
A Fern. It's Clyde or Fern. I
think it's Clyde. I think you're right. Okay. He looks like a Fern though, which is probably why you said that. Yeah. I least liked. So I won't say I didn't like him. He was my least like. My favorite was probably, I don't know if it was her dad or her mom. Maybe her mom.
For me, I think my favorite would be her mom, Cinder.
Yeah, yes. I liked her. Like the main characters aren't bad. Ember and Wade aren't bad. Yeah, they do a great job and they're good characters. But her mom, I think I liked her. Yeah.
So she has 2 parents. Ember, who's the main character, who is the woman lead of the film.
Her mom and dad
are Bernie and Cinder Lumen. And they are fire elements. And
just put that together.
I loved the parents. It's funny because usually in comedies or in comedic scenes, I like the parents just because the parents are always played as like funny but slightly out of touch with like modern society. Yeah. And her mom, Cinder, plays in the real world, she would be a psychic that you would pay to go see to tell you your fortune. Yep. In this world, she kind of plays like a love guru.
She's kind of like a psychic,
like a love psychic.
Yeah, she's like a love doctor.
She does love readings.
There it is.
But she only knows how to do love readings for other fire elements.
Yes. Yes.
Their whole world is just is just closed off to just fire related stuff, even though they lived in like this melting pot city. Right. And I love the parents for that.
Right. Yeah. So and I was gonna say that the fire characters in this particular movie, I guess the whole setup is this way. They actually live separate from the melting pot of element city.
They live in like this fire neighborhood.
It's called Fire Town, right?
Fire Town.
Yeah.
They live in this fire only section of the town, this neighborhood. So no characters we didn't like.
Any surprise performances? Not his mom.
Oh, I loved his mom, Catherine O'Hara.
Yes.
Who played Wade's mom. Catherine O'Hara's from Home Alone. She's the mom.
Oh my God. That fits so perfectly.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. His mom, not necessarily surprised. Yeah, kind of surprised because I didn't think we were going to see his family at all.
I didn't.
So the part where that comes in, I was like, oh, okay. I'm very curious to how this is going to work. But yeah, his mom was a good surprise of like, oh, that was kind of refreshing and cute and nice. Maybe his whole family I would put into that bucket.
I liked his mom, Catherine O'Hara. I liked his boss, who's Wendy McClendon.
You liked his boss?
Yeah, Wendy McClendon Covey.
Okay.
She's been in a lot of stuff. I liked her after her introductory scene.
Fair.
After her introductory scene, I liked her.
Because she came off a little strong.
There wasn't really any antagonist in this movie.
And I was expecting it. So this doesn't spoil it. There's no villain necessarily.
And how could you not like Wendy McClendon Covey?
That's what I'm saying. Once I realized who it was, I was like, oh, she's playing this. She playing this air cloud, whatever she is, real well. But there's no villain. Like there's no Lion King, you got Scar, you got Simba. There's no stereotypical villain in this movie. Which is different. Anything else to talk about before we want to get into
anything
spoilers?
else pre-spoilery? And for anybody who doesn't know who Wendy McClendon Covey is, she's the mom from the Goldbergs.
Perfect. Once I looked it up, I was like, yeah.
The Goldbergs is still so funny.
The Goldbergs is good.
Yeah.
Is it still on?
I'm not sure if it's still on.
You can binge watch the Goldbergs and it still hits.
The Goldbergs is hilarious. I don't think I have anything pre-spoilery to talk about. Do you want to just go ahead and get into the spoilers?
Let's get into it.
So, spoiler premise of the movie is that Ember is the daughter of two fire element immigrants who come from a fire only country.
Love that element, Jesus. Love that point of the plot.
They're two fire element immigrants who migrate to Element City while the mom, Cinder, is pregnant, still pregnant. They move into Element City to start a new life, like most immigrants do, for new life, a new opportunity, and experience new culture. Immediately are met with xenophobia because this Element City that they've moved to was not equipped to handle fire elements. It was not built for fire element
when
people.
Amber grows up, she says like this world wasn't made for us, and I was like, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, she said the city wasn't built with fire elements in mind.
As soon as she gets into the city, I was like, oh, she's exactly right. Like she's
the only one.
Because one, she's the only one, but anything fire, like fire burns, it's hot. So anything fire comes close to, it burns up. Or for instance, if it's close to water starts boiling. If it's close to the trees, aka earth, like she burns up a couple shrubs that are people.
Fire in this movie, fire is portrayed as the minority group.
Correct.
And water is the majority group, where all the other elements get along and have use and are able to cohabitate with water, but nobody is able to cohabitate with fire elements because fire elements are considered destructive.
Right. And they don't accommodate those people in this city.
No, like there was a scene where Ember talks about being a child and wanting to go see a vivisteria, which is a flower at a community garden, and her and her dad were turned away because they were told that fire destroys plants and they didn't want any fire people around the garden.
So she couldn't see it, and she was like, I don't know.
So there were just like random parts of xenophobia throughout the movie that caught me off guard, because I would forget that this is supposed to be a stand-in for like real racism and xenophobia. So
but it's teaching kids not to be racist.
It is.
Hello.
Which I knew that going in, but I didn't. I expected it to be a lot more subtle.
Oh, okay.
I expected to watch this movie and have to unpack the racism.
Nope.
But the racism was. Nope. There was a scene. One of my notes is there was a scene in the movie when Wade, who's the water sign, takes Amber to have dinner with his family. And they're asking Amber, like, you know, he's introducing his girlfriend to his family. So they're asking the typical questions and she's answering them and they're having a good time. And Wade's dad stops and says, you know, for a fire sign, you speak really well and really clear and eloquently.
There it is. I wrote that down.
And it was so awkward because everybody got quiet and Amber was just like,
but her response was stellar.
That's what happens when you speak the same language all your life.
She was
you speak clearly and
she's like, I'm from here. What you mean?
And properly.
So, yes, that was very, and when I say like some of the lines and stuff were like for the parents, like a kid might not technically get that, but the parent does. Yeah. And people say that all the time. All the like
to people who aren't American, right, or who didn't grow up here or grew up in a different part of the culture, and they're just like, oh well, I'm just shocked that you know how to speak English. You speak
so well. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So that was a very good. I actually wrote that down in my notes. I was like, that is just so good because it's so real and it's so relatable to what people go through. But on the flip side, when her parents first come to Element City, Walter, I think what happens to Water, he has an encounter with a water element. So her father is very much, I don't like water. I don't want anything to do with water, because his thought process was because water is always trying to water down fire.
So the movie opens up with Amber's parents moving to the city, and they're trying to find an apartment, or a house, or a place to live.
They're trying to find somewhere to live.
And everywhere they go that has a for rent sign is owned by a water element who immediately slams the door in their face because they don't want fire.
Mostly
people in
water
their town.
Elements. I think it might have been one Earth.
Yeah.
But they basically, as soon as they open the door, it gets slammed in their face because they're fire elements.
So that's when they find out that all the fire people that live in this town live in like a suburb.
Yep.
Where they're just like blocked off with only each other. So yeah, my first note was, didn't expect this to be about immigration.
I knew there would be some sort of like, we are different and we need to accept each other's differences, but it does a really good job of like, no, this is straight up. Like,
this is more realistic. It's like, yeah, we're different, but the world does not accept your differences.
Right. It was more concrete and less fluffy, I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
They didn't really do too much hiding of what they were trying to say.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It was very blatant.
Yep.
Did you have another note?
I like the fact that the family, and this is kind of, I don't want to say this is not stereotypical. It's used in a lot of movies where the family has like a family business and they built it from the ground up. It reminded me of Kim's Convenience.
I didn't see Kim's Convenience.
So Kim's Convenience is about a family, and I can't think of what their culture is. They're Asian, I'm pretty sure. It's with Shang-Chi's character.
Awkwafina?
Simu
Liu is in this show?
Yeah. Oh. You've never seen Kim's Convenience? I thought I got it from you. Anyway, they own a corner store.
Okay.
And they have, she calls her dad, she doesn't call her dad. It's like the cultural word for dad. And I liked in this movie.
Ashfa.
Yeah, she didn't call her dad. She had like a cultural term to call her dad. So I was like, this is very much like Kim's Convenience, because they have like a corner store, and sometimes there's like the interactions are a little strange because sometimes the customers look like them and they get the culture, and then some customers are from outside, and he's like, there's a little bit of like confusion because they're not quite getting each other because they're from different cultures. So that was pretty cool. And I think the director actually based this movie on his family being immigrants and building their own, I don't know if it was a corner store, their own store, family business, and running it. So he kind of based that off. And I was like, this is giving me real Kim's Convenience vibes.
Yeah, and I liked, and was also another point I was caught off guard by were the cultural elements. I didn't expect any culture.
Okay.
Like religious culture.
Okay.
And it wasn't like hammered home religious culture. It was just like Ember's family is cultural. They pray.
Yep.
And I like the fact that we only got that from her and her family.
Correct.
Because it's very reflective of the real world, where if you go outside, most people aren't like, American society as its own isn't like very religious and cultural. I mean, they try to stick everything under the umbrella of Christianity. Yeah. But in the real world, small groups are very religious because especially if they're small groups that have immigrated to the U.S.
You're right.
They still are very cultural.
They did.
And I like the fact that, her culture is like a part of her, and it's what keeps her and her family so close together.
And she didn't at no part of the movie did she reject her culture.
And no part of the movie did she reject her culture.
She never wanted to be
part
water.
of the movie did her culture really like come up.
Yeah, you're right. It was just like a part of their lives and
like
how
there
they
was just a scene where you see her praying. You're like, oh, because they mentioned her family, her mom and her dad mentioned that they pray to the god of the.
There was a blue flame.
The blue flame.
Yeah,
that's what they pray to. They pray to the blue flame, and they have like this prayer stance that they do. And I just thought that was very interesting. It gave them character.
Yeah, I like that. I like that she never wanted to be fire. I mean, she never wanted to be another element. Her main tension, I guess this is a spoiler of the whole movie, she did not want to run her family's business after her dad retired.
Right.
So throughout the whole movie, in the beginning, they show her being born or whatnot, and her dad tell her, when it's your time, like, you'll take over the store. And as a kid, she seems really excited. And even in the movie, when she's grown up and she gets this chance to run the store for herself, and she completely botches it, which is how she meets Wade.
Right.
Because he comes through a pipe that burst. Mm-hmm. She seems like she wants to run the store, but Wade says usually because she has a really bad temper also. Wade's like, usually when I have like a temper, that's myself trying to tell me something. And I did not think that something was going to be.
I guessed it.
When I thought about it, I was like, okay, that makes sense. And it's not something new, but I still didn't like, she seemed so excited to run the store. And she was like, actually, I don't actually want to run my family store. But immigrant families, not even just immigrant families, but families in general, they build up businesses to pass to their kids, and they get a little hurt when
especially if they're immigrants.
Yep. And the kid is like, I actually don't want to do this. So that's kind of her, and the fact that she is in love with a earth or water element are like two main things going on in the movie. Yeah,
there's a scene early on after they do a montage where Amber's born, and then we see her grow up through the years. And then they never say her age, but I'm guessing she's a young adult at this point.
Yeah.
And she gets to run transactions for a customer on her own. Correct. Without her dad's help. And she has, that anybody who's worked in customer service has that
one customer.
The customer is always right customer. She has a bad interaction with them. She completely blows up almost because she's a fire sign. Her temper rages and she almost burns the store down. And there's somebody on the side who's also in the store makes a comment like, oh, she almost went full purple. I've never seen a flame go full purple before. So it's established that she has a temper issue that's like out of the ordinary and sets her apart from the rest of the fire elements. But when she first meets Wade and he tells her your temper is a sign that is trying to tell you something, I was like, oh, it's clearly she doesn't want to run the store.
Oh, yeah.
Because what else does she have going on outside of feeling like she has to make her dad proud and run the store?
And the tension is not I like the fact that the tension was she wanted to be something else. The tension was she just wanted to be a good daughter to her dad. And she felt like her not wanting to run the store was her being a bad daughter.
And her dad was sick. Well, not sick, but he was just too old to run the store.
Right. He was coughing up smoke.
Yeah. So coughing up, being a fire sign and coughing up smoke is clearly a sign that you need to settle down.
Listen, I thought the dad was going to get it. And I was waiting. I was like, okay, they're about to kill off the dad. They're about to kill off the dad. When are they going to do it? And they don't. And I was like, yay, the dad lives.
Nobody dies.
Nope. Wade technically.
It gets very close.
Wade technically was gone for a good 30 seconds. And I was like, did they kill Wade?
That.
Oh my God.
So we'll get to that later.
Speaking of to your purple part of where she turns purple, I have in my notes, Homegirl is basically a superhero.
No, she is.
She's literally a super.
Because they kind of established that nobody else can do that.
She is like she a beast. Like she uses her flame to turn things into glass, to fix things, to patch things. I guess the villain, quote unquote, of the movie is the river, because the river comes.
The villain seems like xenophobia.
Well,
because
yeah,
it seems
right.
like the river. So
the river represents racism.
The B plot that Cheryl kind of went over in the movie is that Ember is being set up by her dad to take over the shop and run it.
Mm-hmm.
He only is going to give it to her if she can prove that she was responsible enough. Her temper is issue number one.
Mm-hmm.
Her temper kind of shows that she's not responsible enough. Because of her temper flaring up, she causes the pipes to burst and the basement to flood with water. And there's not supposed to be any water flowing through this fire town?
There's not supposed to be any water flowing in Firetown, and Wade was trying to figure out what was going on. There was like a leak, and he gets sucked in through the pipe that bursts, and that's how they meet.
So we find out the water is actually coming from a cruise ship, a boat that just goes through town.
Mm-hmm. And it's
that I'm assuming is run by other water signs?
I would assume.
And just constantly sends flooding water into Firetown.
Correct.
Which would be like the minority town in this movie. So that's why I think xenophobia
it's probably
is supposed to be the villain.
Gentrification does happen in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Moving all when they try to move people out and they try to put them all in one space. So basically all of fire was in this one town.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, I guess when you look at it, it also wasn't as nice.
No.
Like it wasn't as built up as the rest of the city. So it was like a little fire ghetto.
Yeah,
essentially.
It was kind of like a fire ghetto.
And that was getting neglected because it was a leak that was busting through. They weren't really like super urgent to fix it, I guess.
Yeah. And that, like Amber said, the town was not built with fire signs in mind. Mm-hmm. So they use a bunch of different, while Ember and Wade are working together to try to solve the issue with water flooding into Firetown and ruining her shop. They solve it by finding out that because the town is not used to having fire signs, they did not know that Ember could make glass out of sand. Mm-hmm. So she uses sand and turns the sand into glass to patch up like this hole in the wall that's causing the water to come through into Firetown. Yep. So they do that, saves the day, kind of solves the initial problem of the shop flooding constantly. But she still has to deal with the fact that I have to tell my dad I don't want to run this shop.
Right. And she also didn't tell her dad that she was the one that caused the
pipe
to burst.
She lied. So she lied and said that Wade, the water sign, is the one who caused the flooding, which her father is already disillusioned to water people anyway because of how they treated him and his wife when they first immigrated there. Yep. So she kind of fuels it a little bit. She fuels the racism just a little bit to save herself.
She like, I'm trying to save myself, essentially, and my father's shop. But at the same time, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here.
Right. So all in all, the plan doesn't work to stop the water from flooding in. It kind of just causes it to build up and overflow. So now instead of just flooding her shop, it's flooding all of Firetown.
Basically, Firetown the glass doesn't hold. Mm-hmm. Firetown gets flooded. Mm-hmm. And Wade and Ember get stuck in They
get stuck in the back of the shop.
They get stuck in the back of the shop. So there's no water coming in, but it's too hot for Wade.
And of course, if she gets underwater, she dies. So there's the tension.
Right. She can't get underwater because she gets snuffed out. And he can't stay where it's too hot.
Because he'll turn into steam.
Which basically is what happens.
It's exactly what happens. They get stuck in the back of the shop. She uses her firepower to kind of like weld the wall.
Right. And then she tries to unweld it when she realized Wade is turning into a steam pod.
Right. So because there's no other oxygen in the room except for her and Wade, she's burning it all up because she's an ember.
Yep. And Wade basically
evaporates into
gives
steam.
his little cute little speech. And I'm like, oh my God, they're killing Wade. But how they bring Wade, so basically Wade comes back because, so one thing we didn't mention, which was real quick, Wade, I guess being water, him and his family are very emotional. So they cry a lot. So anytime you say something sensitive or anything nice or anything bad, they like cry, like literal streams of tears. Mm-hmm. So at the end, after Wade is turned into steam, Amber basically unalived him. Mm-hmm. She says something. She has like a moment with her dad where she's all honest and truthful about what's going on. And Wade hears it because he's in the steam and he starts to cry, and they basically cry him back to life.
All the little drip drops of steam from the ceiling come down,
gather into a bucket, and then waves come back. Like he's even like, oh, I didn't even know this was a hey,
so death has no real meaning in this world. Apparently.
Well, somehow
at least for water.
About to say, because for fire at the beginning, they have a little cutscene of grandma dying, and she definitely go poof.
Yeah.
So one of my notes was they're dangerous to each other.
They are.
I was like, y'all can't really interact, but they do find a way that Wade and Ember can at least connect, and they don't like kill each other. So that was cute.
So before we do did you already do favorite line or scene?
I did not do that.
Before we do favorite line or scene, are there any other notes that you want to mention?
I like that Fire had their own language called Fire-ish.
I did.
Well, I guess I kind of mentioned that at the beginning, but yeah.
I love the fact that they couldn't spell it. They couldn't really, when somebody was like, okay, well, how do you spell it? Yeah. They couldn't really spell it because every culture doesn't use the alphabet. Right. So, yeah, I love the fact that it was an authentic language.
That was cute. And the part where because she tries to teach him a word when they're in the hot air balloon that she makes because she's a freaking superhero. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, that's not quite how you say that, but A for effort.
Right. I had three notes. One, lots of adult jokes. I put in parentheses the pruning scene.
You think there was a lot? I didn't think there was too many.
There were
the pruning scene for sure.
There were 3 adult jokes that I liked. There was one joke when they're all in the shop and I think they're her dad's friends.
Yes, they're like the best friends of the parents.
You know, you ever been young in a room with a bunch of old folks cracking jokes that you have no idea what they're talking about? Yes. That's kind of how it was set up. Uh-huh. And then Amber tells them to get off their ash and do something.
Oh, yes.
I thought that was a good adult joke.
That was cute.
The scene when they're in the hot air balloon trying to make it to, I guess, City Hall.
They were trying to find the leak.
Oh, they were trying to find the leak. Mm-hmm. So they get into the hot air balloon to find the leak. They fly past this earth element couple that are like picking the leaves off of each other. Yeah. And when they see them, they get all awkward and they're like, oh, we're just nothing to see here. We're just doing some pruning. And it just was like, that's gross.
Right.
Because you got the windows open. And at the end, when Ember is getting on the ship to go away, her dad says, we'll be fine. More her time for hanky panky.
They do. They literally say the word hanky panky. Like no type of fire-ish lingo for that. Just straight up, we about to get it after you leave.
So those are the adult jokes that I thought. That was one note.
You're right. They were in there. But they weren't I guess they weren't super crude. Like some adult jokes in kids' movies can be like, you should have put that in there. I don't think so.
I thought the crying game was weird.
It was weird.
But I know that's something that people do in real life.
Oh, do they?
That's a game that people play in real life.
That is awkward for
humans. Where they try to get you to cry.
I don't
it's
like
weird.
It was weird.
It was weird then because I'm like, what's the point of why are you guys playing a game where you try to get the other person to cry? You say I guess it worked for his
family because they were all super emotional, and the scene where he makes her cry was cute. But I was like, this is not a
kind of like the staring game and spin the bottle. It's one of those weird games that people actually do.
Play taboo.
And play. It's
categories for elements.
Cards.
Something else.
Play spades. And my last note was, oh no, not Ocean Gate. There was a scene when
when she was in a bubble
Wade
and the air
gets
started
his boss
to
create a bubble so she can go underwater to see the Vivisteria plant,
which was a cute scene.
Which I loved the scene, but it gave me Ocean Gate vibes because they created an air bubble for her to go down into.
Right, because she
was like, I'm supposed to get in that and go underwater? And he was like, yeah, it'll last you. She's like, you got 20 minutes. Right. I'm like, if you run out of oxygen, you're going to die.
And basically, by the end of that scene, her oxygen do run out, but Wade gets her out in time to where they both survive.
So I was like, oh, no, not Ocean
Gate. Because her little flame started getting real dented when her bubble started shrinking.
Ever since Ocean Gate, we got it in the Meg. We got an Elemental. I'm like, wow.
People were adding it before they even knew it was a thing.
Okay. You want to do favorite line or scene?
I have 2 favorite scenes.
Okay.
Because I did my favorite. And then another scene came, so I changed my first one to second favorite.
Okay.
So my favorite scene, I'll do second favorite scene, was where the mom was trying to break through security at the parents' hotel or apartment. So mom's a fire, but she's a little flame. Like she's
an old lady.
She's a little older lady. And then she's sneaking around to figure out where Amber is going. And she runs up against this security guard who's
Who's a big water.
And he's huge. I mean, the man's like a couple gallons tall and wide. And she like a little matchstick down at the bottom. And she's trying to get through. And he's like, you know, ma'am, only guests and residents can come in. And she was like, oh, okay, don't worry about it. And then she like turns around like she's going to walk away. And then she tries to quickly run past the man. And the man just stands there still like, you still can't get in here. And they obviously go back and forth for a while. Because by the time the end of that scene comes around, she's exhausted and she burnt out and he exhausted. I'm like, what are y'all doing down here? That was my second favorite scene. And my first favorite scene I have was the Wisteria scene where he takes her through the Ocean Gate bubble. But she finally gets to see the plant that she wanted to see, that they got turned around when she was little because they thought fire was going to burn it up. But the plant place, our museum or whatever, actually flooded a few years later. So she's upset in an earlier scene because she never got to see it. And then Wade basically makes it happen. Yeah. So that was my favorite scene.
I like that scene a lot too. My favorite scene, I don't think I have a favorite line. My favorite scene was her mama waking up because she smelled love and chasing her.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was funny.
So her mom is like
and I thought she was faking. I thought it was a whole ruse. I was like, oh, she's actually like, this is actually like a thing that she's good at.
Yeah, she actually has like this supernatural talent to smell love on people. So her mom, who we said is like this, who's like the equivalent of a psychic. She does love psychic. She does love readings for people. When she realizes that Amber is falling in love with Wade, she starts to smell love on her. And I thought at first she was like she's wearing perfume or something.
Yeah, she doesn't know her mom doesn't know it's Wade.
Right. So her mom can smell love on her. And her mom follows her all the way up into her date. She doesn't know. Yep. They get back home and their dad almost catches them because Amber went out on a secret date. The mom went out to chase Amber on a secret date. Right. Everybody left the dad at home in bed. So when they finally get back home, the dad wakes up. He comes downstairs. Okay,
I know what scene you're talking about.
The dad wakes up. He comes downstairs. He's like, what's going on? I wake up. Nobody's upstairs. Everybody's downstairs. And her mom, who can't think of a cover story fast enough, is like, we were just sitting here talking about this door. You know, we really don't talk about this door enough.
Amber was like, is that what you say?
Amber was like, pull it together.
Yeah, she tells her to pull it together.
So I really like that scene. I really like the parents.
Yeah, I love how the mom also told her she stinks. She was like, that stinks. And her Amber was like, oh, is that love on me? So yeah, it was very cute. That and the other scene with the mom that was funny was when she tries to do a love reading for Wade and Amber. And she's like, see, you can't do a love reading because Wade can't technically light whatever the stick is because he's not a flame. So Wade finds like this. He basically uses the magnifying glass trick? He does the magnifying glass trick to light it. And she's just like, oh, okay, whatever.
Right. I guess you can make this work.
Right. But she doesn't tell them what the reading says. And we don't find out till I think towards the end of the movie that she actually like read that they would be in love. So that was cute.
So the movie ends.
Oh, wait. I have one more last scene. That's my most favorite scene. My most favorite scene was at the very end where we learned that when her parents left their hometown, his dad did like this ceremonial bow in their language of their culture to his dad as they were leaving, and his dad was not happy with him leaving, so he didn't do the bow back. And her dad says that's something I hold on to his day, to the fact that he did this little symbolic thing and his dad wasn't trying to have it. So at the very end of the movie, Amber accepts an internship so she doesn't have to take over the shop. She accepts an internship that Wade's mom told her about. So they're leaving to go on this boat, and Amber turns around and does the ceremonial bow, and her dad does it back. And I was like, I think Bailey cutting onions because I feel a little water behind my eyes.
It was a very emotional scene.
I was like, what is this? Is it dust?
But that goes back to one of the points where I was like, I was happy that the culture, they showed the religious and cultural elements, and it was kind of like enclosed to them. Yeah. Because it's a very specific culture that's very specific to those people.
Right. And they are the ones who were the immigrants, and they kept their culture, and they didn't want to be anybody else. They still wanted to stick to that, and they weren't trying to assimilate at all. But they did live in a space where they weren't accepted, and it was very obvious. Yeah. But her doing that dance for her dad was very cute and touching, because he didn't get that from his dad. So hopefully that like closed his loop of like, my dad didn't do it for me. So
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how the movie ends. Amber and Wade get together. Amber gets an internship at glass making school.
company of some sort.
She gets an internship at the world. They just keep saying it's like the world's most famous, successful glass making company.
Right. And we know that it's far away. So she has to leave Element City to go wherever this is.
But she said she'll be back in a couple months.
Did you watch the credits?
I did. I didn't finish them because after a while I was like, it seems like there's not going to be anything after, was there?
Well, no. So there was no after credit scene, but the credits played out how everybody ended up.
Okay.
So like the little kid I found annoying, the Earth tree kid, he actually falls in love with the flame. The flame
that was running around the shop at the end?
Yes, the flame. His boss and the other Earth guy that Wade worked with, they got together and his mom did a love reading for both of them.
Okay.
His parents, both of the parents met, so they went over there for dinner. Okay. And then the very last scene they show Wade and Amber coming back home to visit. Okay. And her and her dad hug. So I loved how they used the credits to show what happened next versus doing like an after credit scene.
And the last note is I didn't expect the soundtrack. I like the soundtrack.
It was good.
Yeah, I didn't expect it.
No words.
No words.
Really. Except the main like title track or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the music was good. You know what, the last several movies, no, I shouldn't say that. A lot of recent movies we watched have had good, or shows like Ahsoka's music. Love it. Mm-hmm. Like that end credit scene music. I'm like, oh, he was putting the piano strings, horns, whatever on fire. Yeah. Oppenheimer's music was good. And is there another movie? Maybe mainly Oppenheimer, Ahsoka. This had good music, but movie music.
Barbie had good music.
Movie music it adds a little extra chef kiss to the movie.
Who would like this movie? I think everybody would like this movie.
I think everybody would like it if they have if you have an open mind in terms of if you're not a racist. There we go. We'll just put it that way. I'm just gonna say what it is. Like if you're not racist and you like
racists would not like this movie.
They would not like this movie. Don't go see it if you don't like other people of other cultures.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna be talking about you in this.
Other than that, I think everybody would like this movie. I think this movie is for people of all ages. There is a character of every age in this movie.
You're right. It's not like I heard like how Super Mario is a big family movie. I'm trying to think of a movie that's like really kid like that Paw Patrol. Listen, now we can say it at the same time. That Paw Patrol movie, ain't no way I'm gonna be stepping foot into that. Yeah. So it's not that much of a kid's movie, but it's also not as adulty like Shrek. I think Shrek leans real adult in some instances.
Yeah, it's definitely not as...
Like, Shrek got a lot of references. You're like, that is definitely for the parents. Yeah, that is not for the kids.
Shrek is 100% an adult film. I wouldn't say it's not somber. It's not like WALL-E. I'm trying to think along the lines of other Pixar movies.
Somber. No, that last Toy Story that I refused to see.
It's not even as somber as Buzz Lightyear.
No.
It's not really somber.
It's a good time. It's cute. I mean, it definitely has elements of kind of like, pondering and thinking and, feeling some feelings because of what's going on in the movie. But it ends like on a good note and ends very cute and cuddly. Yeah. Worth the theater, just the movie, or don't bother watching?
I would say it's worth the theater.
I would have, if this didn't open on Juneteenth weekend, I think we would have gotten to see it. Yeah,
I definitely think it was worth the theater.
I think it's worth the digital.
Clearly, at least $500 million worth of people think it's worth the theater.
I think it's worth the digital if you're like a family and you want to watch something, it's definitely cheaper than going to the movie. So I would say if you don't have Disney Plus and you don't want to wait, this would be a good rental.
I can't wait to see when this comes on streaming because I think it's going to skyrocket.
Yes. Also, I want a sequel.
So the rumor is a sequel has been greenlit, but they can't do anything with it right now.
I want to see Wade and Amber on her internship
Definitely sequel potential plot wise, and now it has the budget to make a sequel.
Yeah, so I want a sequel because I want more of her family. I want more of them. I guess they can't have kids, but maybe they don't want kids, so that's totally fine.
Yeah, and I think that would be even better to showcase a couple that just doesn't have kids.
Yeah, you're right.
Because we don't get a lot of that.
You're right. It's automatic.
That's all about family building and stuff.
Right. I was like, maybe they don't want kids, which is cool. But they were a cute couple, and I love the parents, and I love the dynamic of her and her parents, and even Wade and his parents. So just bring back everybody.
Yeah, just bring back everybody. And this isn't like a stacked cast of people who are like A-list actors or constantly booked and busy and stuff.
These the same people.
I'm sure they're free and available, and they would love to come back for a sequel.
And it's good because sometimes them A-list actors get a little too big headed, and they're like,
and it keeps the budget low.
Mm-hmm. This voice cast was good. So if they ever do a sequel, hopefully they do.
So that is our review for Pixar's Elemental. Make sure you rent it on digital if you need to see it now. I don't have a date for when it's going to drop on streaming,
but don't have it yet.
When there is one, we will let you guys know.
But you got to listen to every episode to find out.
And you should absolutely watch it on streaming when it does hit Disney Plus.
Yep.
So that is our review. What are we doing next?
I believe, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, we are going to do both Extraction movies, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen, have you seen Extraction 2 yet?
I have not seen Extraction 2
so
yet.
we both haven't seen Extraction 2. We have seen Extraction 1, but I heard the second one is good. You already said they greenlit a third one, so
right, they greenlit the third one right after the second one started getting.
So I guess we know what happens to the main character there.
I mean, they can't kill Chris Hemsworth more than once. You can't kill a person more than once in a movie without ruining.
Yeah, so we'll do Extraction, and then I think we're gonna do a favorites, least favorites, most anticipated episode after that of what movies we've seen and what movies haven't come out yet. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to rate our podcast on whatever podcast app you're listening to. If you have any ideas, movies you want us to see, topics you want us to talk about, you can email us at vaguelynerdypodcast@gmail.com.
All right. And until next time, thanks for listening.
Peace.